what Kamala Harris's speech told us. If you go to the timestamp 11:24, she starts to talk about, okay, what guidance is there in order to move us forward now? And truly, what she says is that we don't have a traditional mechanism that would be our savior. So that is going to fall on each individual American to unite and not disconnect and form a common block again in opposition against a rogue government, right? Which is different than what the blue states are individually doing. The Michigan is doing their own thing, and they're just like, they came for immigrants, but at least it's not Michigan. And California is doing the same thing. The fact is that I would say it's not just about each individual becoming together, but we have to create a united blue state bloc, because the only thing that truly convinces Republicans to change their policy isn't convincing them for a constitutional order, because they don't care. They voted like this because they knew the Constitution was going to be challenged, because they knew it was going to be eroded. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about your rights. What they care about is the economy, right? They care about tariffs. That's what makes them disconnect from him. But if there is no foreign challenges going on, the challenges that we'll have to force them will be from the blue states. The fact we don't have that right now is our problem, because us as individuals are only as powerful as our states, and we're not maximizing on state rights. We're not maximizing on state rights because we're hands off from our state government, right? We're only trying to pressure our federal government and our representatives in order to push federal policy, right? But what we should be doing is using our state legislature, using our state government, particularly our state executive, as an advocate for the state, for constitutional order against this rogue government. The fact California is the fifth largest economy, yet we have our head into the sand because we think that we don't move, then he won't look at us. It's fucking embarrassing. And this is the thing. Our solution to what's going to fix this isn't going to be in tradition. Because tradition didn't fix the H cost. Why? Because the Nuremberg trials, international law, that is non-traditional law. We require non-traditional law here because our greatest hurdle here is the fact that when we're talking about treason, when it comes to the legality of it, the government has it so that if you act against the government agenda, they can argue treason. But the full reality is that under our fundamental order, what should be treason is violence against a constitutional order. But they wanted to safeguard their own governmental kingdom. And that's what truly we have to recognize, that our framers weren't perfect. Our framers got it wrong, and that's why we're here. And every single branch is going to fail to have willingness. The courts won't have judicial willingness, because if they actually go ahead and maximize on contempt charges and the executive basically ignores it, then that means a dissolution of the rule of law, and that means anarchy, right? They don't want that, which means they will never push there unless they are being forced through an ultimatum through blue states. Political willingness from Congress, particularly from the Republicans, won't exist because they actually want the constitutional harm. They want the social harm. They just don't want the economic harm to their state. And here's the thing, because they're so fine refusing to negotiate when it comes to funding of blue city initiatives. What the DOJ is actually doing is using funds to investigate and prosecute blue cities, liberal cities. So they're using the funds that blue states give in order to disenfranchise us, taxation without representation, and we're just allowing them. See, the willingness won't be created because they benefit from this status quo that is happening, this disorder, right? Our state government won't have that political willingness because they don't want to go against tradition. Who didn't want to go against tradition? Joe Biden, when he refused to force the archivist to publish the Equal Rights Amendment. Joe Biden, when he refused to reject the DOJ decision to drop the election interference case because of the tradition of the agency of not prosecuting sitting presidents, which is not constitutionally enforceable. Tradition is what keeps us here without an answer, and we have to go beyond tradition and into the lawful possibilities of what we can do. And the lawful possibility is the roots of, if I'm disqualified, then I cannot win. If I cannot win, JD cannot win. If JD cannot win, Pam Bondi cannot win. If Pam Bondi cannot win, I do not have pardoning power. If I do not have pardoning power, I don't actually have presidential power. So we have a rogue, illegitimate candidate in our government that we are allowing to stay. Why? Because there is a non-consensus about Amendment 14, Section 3, because some judge from a long time ago said that it wasn't self-executing because it would hurt the feelings and would hurt the equality of the South because of the Confederacy. That's ridiculous. That is judicial coup. That is a judicial coup that allowed for the eventual legislative coup of not impeaching him for the election interference, right? For the insurrection. That is a legislative coup that resulted in when we have a constitutional coup. And we're beyond the constitutional crisis part. We are in a constitutional collapse. And I'll tell you this, if he lasts here up until midterms, the Constitution won't. And fixing that starts with urgency in each and every single one of you. May 1st, 2025 will be a protest, and hopefully you're capable of going. Because truly what we see is that people think that it's going to just be 4 years, that we can just wait and see. And it's not going to happen like that. I have a background in international law. I've studied authoritarianism. I've studied the governments and how they produce political and social violence. People think those aren't the same thing. Political violence is when that violence is being committed by a government. Say the executive, right? Kidnapping people and whatnot. Social violence is when the people at the bottom and the public society get the audacity to start taking on the agenda of the executive and then doing it on their own. Like that instance in Texas where like 20 kids were harassing the Muslim girls. That is social violence. And social violence is much more detrimental to us actually, even though political violence is also bad, because they are given impunity in their actions. That's what's happening, right? Law enforcement can do whatever they want because now we have literal law firms who will be protecting their right to police brutality. And here's the thing, the longer this lasts, the more agencies and people will find it okay to be under him, and they won't move back. You think they're gonna realize what they're doing and what's happening and they're going to move back. They won't, because this type of government centers power, centers control, and that means that the few win, and that few are usually white, and that whiteness is better to be in control, even at the cost of constitutional collapse. The only reality where we do not have a successful regime of him is one where every single individual stops fucking around. You get some fucking urgency, you stop having your fucking head into the sand, and you figure it out. Because if you yourself inside do not see it as necessary to fight for this fucking country, to unite and actually be in a block, specifically if you're in a blue state, specifically if you're Californian, because we complain about how there's no backbone in the Democratic Party. Okay, but what about in California? California is the fourth largest economy, and look at us here, just nonchalantly just existing because hey, you know, we don't want him to hurt our state. You know, neither did Poland. So he gave away 3.3 million Jews and 3 million Jews didn't return. The fact people consider, oh, but we have to take care of our own state as something that is innovative and not something that other people in the past have not thought of and actually failed in doing so, the United Kingdom, goes to show how out of touch we are with the actual consequences of what's happening because we do not acknowledge that this has happened before, and we think that the United States is immune. We think that the United States Constitution is forever, but it won't be unless we stop it. So figure it out and get out there because we no longer have a reason to remain silent. This is it. This is the fight. I don't know what you're looking for, but this is that sign that it's not about the judiciary, it's not about the legislative, it's about we the people. And we the people have to go through our state legislature and our state government in order to force Republican reform, right? Because they don't care about constitutional harm, they care about economic harm. And we have to harm them where it changes them. That is the economy. That is that ultimatum. Either restore constitutional order or we leave.